Commander Marcus Steele tightened his grip on the console as alarms blared throughout the ISS Vanguard. The station, a marvel of human engineering orbiting a distant, unstable star system, had become a death trap. Moments ago, the star they had been monitoring erupted into an unexpected supernova. Now, shock waves rippled through space, tearing apart the fragile structure of the station. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos, barking commands to the remaining crew members scrambling for escape pods. His focus was unwavering, but the situation was dire. Fires raged in the hallways, the artificial gravity flickered erratically, and oxygen levels were plummeting. The Vanguard, once a beacon of humanity's ambition, was disintegrating around him. He reached the central control room, where the experimental data drive sat locked in a secure compartment. This drive held months of research, data that could revolutionize humanity's understanding of gravitational anomalies. Marcus hesitated for only a moment before grabbing it. Knowledge had to survive, even if he didn't. As the station groaned under the strain, he sprinted toward the last remaining escape pod. Along the way, debris fell from above, forcing him to duck and weave through collapsing corridors. His breathing was labored, not just from exertion but from the smoke thickening the air. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. He had ensured the rest of the crew evacuated, but now he was alone. Reaching the pod bay, he found the small craft hanging precariously in its docking cradle. The automated launch sequence had failed, leaving him to manually override the system. He worked quickly, his fingers dancing over the console as sparks rained down from overhead wiring. Sweat dripped into his eyes, but he didn't stop. The moment the pod disengaged, the station gave a final, deafening groan. Marcus strapped in as the pod rocketed away, the viewport filling with blinding light as the Vanguard exploded. The force of the blast sent the pod tumbling uncontrollably. Alarms screamed as Marcus fought with the controls, stabilizing the craft just enough to regain a semblance of order. Silence followed. Marcus exhaled, his chest heaving as he gazed out at the debris field. Pieces of the station floated aimlessly, glowing faintly in the light of the dying star. He was alive, but the odds were grim. The pod's oxygen reserves were critically low, and its navigation system was fried. He leaned back, gripping the data drive like a lifeline. This was what humanity did: push boundaries, face the unknown, and find a way to endure. Marcus had no illusions about his chances, but he wasn't ready to give up. As the pod drifted into the void, the faint hum of his breathing mask became the only sound. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, trying to steady his thoughts. Survival wasn't guaranteed, but if there was one thing he knew, it was that humans were built to persevere. And if this was the end, he'd face it head-on. The escape pod drifted silently through the void, its systems barely functional. Marcus Steele stared out into the endless expanse of space, his breath slow and deliberate as he tried to conserve oxygen. The data drive rested on his lap, its weight both literal and symbolic, a reminder of the purpose that kept him going. He knew his chances of survival were slim, but surrender was not in his nature. A faint glimmer appeared in the distance, catching his eye. At first, he thought it might be a trick of the light, some last flicker of hope his mind had conjured in the face of despair. But as it grew brighter and more defined, Marcus realized it was real. A ship, sleek and luminous, approached with deliberate grace. The craft was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with shifting hues, reflecting the light of distant stars. Marcus felt a surge of mixed emotions, relief at the possibility of rescue and apprehension at the unknown. The pod systems, though damaged, registered the ship's presence as it came to a halt nearby. A beam of light enveloped the pod, and Marcus felt a subtle vibration as he was drawn aboard. The interior of the ship was as alien as its exterior, with walls that seemed alive, pulsing faintly with energy. Marcus unstrapped himself from the pod and stood cautiously, his movements slow and measured. He didn't have to wait long before he saw her. The figure before him was humanoid but distinctly alien. Her skin shimmered like polished opal, shifting colors subtly with her movements. Her eyes, large and feline, studied him with a mix of curiosity and caution. She wore a form-fitting suit adorned with intricate patterns that glowed faintly, mirroring the ship's organic design. Marcus raised his hand slightly, a universal gesture of peace. The alien tilted her head, her gaze sharp and calculating. After a moment, a soft voice echoed through the space, not hers directly, but through an AI translator embedded in the ship. "You are injured," the voice said. It was a statement, not a question. Marcus nodded, touching the small gash on his forehead. "I'm grateful for the rescue. My name is Marcus Steele, from Earth." The alien didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her movements fluid and deliberate. She gestured to a nearby console, and a small drone emerged, scanning Marcus with a faint hum. He remained still, trusting that whatever she intended wasn't harmful. After the scan completed, she spoke again through the translator. "You require oxygen. Follow me." Marcus obeyed, his steps tentative as he followed her through the ship's corridors. The walls seemed to shift and reshape as they walked, adapting to their movements. She led him to a chamber where a device resembling an oxygen tank sat waiting. She activated it with a simple motion, and Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the life-giving air fill his lungs. "Thank you," he said sincerely. She finally responded, this time with a faint smile. "Kaela," she said, gesturing to herself. It was the first moment that felt personal, a bridge forming between them. "Kaela," Marcus repeated, committing her name to memory. Their interaction was cautious but genuine. Despite the language barrier and their obvious differences, they found a rhythm in their communication. Kaela gestured for him to sit, and she began to explain, through the translator, that her species, the Nirexans, rarely interacted with others. She had been exploring the remnants of the collapsing star system when she discovered his pod. Marcus listened carefully, marveling at the technology and intelligence she possessed. Yet he noticed something else in her demeanor, a curiosity about him, about humanity. As they exchanged basic information, Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a rescue, it was first contact. And in that realization, he saw hope, not just for himself but for the future of both their species. Marcus sat quietly, observing Kaela as she moved with precision across the ship's control interface. Her fingers glided over the glowing panels, and every motion seemed to ripple through the ship itself. He couldn't help but admire the seamless connection between her and her vessel. Yet, the tension in her posture was unmistakable. Something was wrong. The translator chimed, breaking the silence. "Debris from your station has damaged critical systems. Power levels are insufficient for sustained flight." Marcus frowned, leaning forward. "How bad is it?" Kaela turned, her expression neutral but her eyes revealing unease. "We have limited time before the gravitational forces of the dying star pull us in." He took a deep breath, scanning the room for anything familiar. "Can I help? I might not understand your tech, but I'm good at fixing things under pressure." Kaela hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She gestured for him to follow her into what appeared to be an engineering bay. The room was filled with intricate machinery, glowing conduits, and tools that looked both alien and oddly intuitive. She pointed to a fractured energy core, its surface flickering erratically. "This regulates power distribution. It must be repaired." Marcus crouched beside the device, analyzing its structure. Despite its alien design, he recognized certain universal principles of energy transfer. "It's overheating," he said, tracing a damaged conduit with his fingers. "Looks like a cooling mechanism is offline." Kaela handed him a tool that resembled a multi-purpose wrench, her expression shifting to one of cautious trust. Marcus worked quickly, his hands steady despite the stakes. As he repaired the conduit, Kaela observed him intently. The translator captured her thoughts aloud. "Your species adapts quickly. You are not overwhelmed by the unfamiliar." Marcus smirked without looking up. "Humans don't have the luxury of being overwhelmed. We just figure things out." Her gaze lingered on him, a flicker of respect crossing her face. When he finished reconnecting the conduit, the core stabilized, its light steady and strong. Marcus stepped back, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. "That should buy us some time," he said. Kaela inclined her head. "It is sufficient for now. But more systems require attention." They moved to another section of the ship, working side by side. As they collaborated, Marcus couldn't help but ask questions. "Why are you out here alone? Doesn't your species have fleets or colonies?" Kaela paused, considering her response. "The Nirexans value independence. Our progress comes from individual exploration, not collective effort." "That sounds lonely," Marcus said, tightening a loose panel. "It is efficient," she replied, though her tone lacked conviction. Marcus grinned faintly. "Efficiency isn't everything. Sometimes, working together gets better results." Kaela glanced at him, her expression unreadable. They continued in silence, repairing systems one by one. Finally, after hours of labor, the ship hummed with renewed energy. Kaela checked the readouts and turned to Marcus. "We are stable. You have contributed significantly." He shrugged, his exhaustion evident but his satisfaction clear. "Just doing what I can." Kaela's gaze softened. "Perhaps your way, your collective resilience, is not without merit." Marcus met her eyes, feeling a genuine connection forming. In the midst of chaos, they had found a shared purpose, bridging the gap between their worlds. The ship glided smoothly now, far from the collapsing star system. Marcus leaned against a wall, staring out of a translucent panel that offered a view of the endless stars. The silence was calming after the chaos of the past hours, but his mind remained restless. Kaela approached, holding a small, glowing device in her hands. The translator spoke softly as she held it out to him. "This contains the coordinates of my homeworld. If you wish to return to your people, I can assist you in reaching a human colony or relay the information to Earth." Marcus took the device carefully, the weight of her gesture not lost on him. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I don't know if I would have made it without your help." Kaela tilted her head slightly. "And I would not have survived without yours. Your resourcefulness was unexpected." He chuckled. "Humans have a way of surprising people. It's kind of our thing." Kaela sat across from him, her luminous eyes studying his face. "Your species is different from what I anticipated. You act not out of individual survival but with concern for others, even those you do not know. This is rare among my kind." Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "It's not always easy, but cooperation is what's kept us alive. We're stronger together." For a moment, Kaela seemed to reflect on his words. Then, she reached into a compartment on her suit and produced a small artifact, an intricate piece of metal and crystal that pulsed faintly with light. She held it out to him. "A gift," she said. "It symbolizes understanding and mutual growth. Among my people, it is a token rarely given." Marcus hesitated before taking it, turning it over in his hands. "I'm honored. I don't have much to give in return, but—" He retrieved the experimental data drive from his pocket. "This might not mean much to you, but it represents humanity's pursuit of knowledge. I'd like you to have it." Kaela accepted the drive with a rare smile. "Knowledge is the foundation of progress. Your gift is valued." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the moment settling between them. Finally, Marcus broke the quiet. "What happens now? Do you go back to exploring?" Kaela nodded slowly. "Yes. But this encounter has altered my perspective. Perhaps it is time to reconsider the ways of my people. Isolation may not always lead to growth." Marcus smiled. "You'd be surprised what you can achieve when you let others in. If you ever make it to Earth, I'll show you." Kaela's expression softened. "Perhaps one day." As the ship approached a neutral space station, Marcus prepared to board a shuttle that would take him back to human territory. Before he left, he turned to Kaela one last time. "Thank you, Kaela, for everything." She inclined her head. "And thank you, Marcus Steele. Your survival was not mere chance. It was your humanity." As the shuttle departed, Marcus watched her ship fade into the distance, a glimmer of light in the vast expanse. He held the artifact tightly, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, connection and understanding could shine brighter than any star.